Good morning and welcome to Question and Obfuscation. I'm your host, Peter O'Brien, and today my guest is Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Good morning, Prime Minister, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
Prime Minister, I know you're a busy man, Garma festivals and so on to visit, so I'll cut right to the chase. Right now, you seem to be in a lot of trouble. One Nation is at least as popular as Labor.
Are they though? Are they?
Well, according to multiple polls over the last couple of months, they are.
Peter, the only poll that counts is the one on election day.
And they're even further ahead of the coalition.
And we all know the polls don't lie.
On the subject of lying, One Nation are now campaigning openly against you as a liar. Do you now regret promising, before the last election, not to touch negative gearing or capital gains tax?
I reject the premise of that question, Peter. Let me be very clear. We did not promise to not touch negative gearing in CGT. We just ruled it out. That's important.
What's the difference?
Well, ruling out means it's not under active consideration at that time. Ruling something out doesn't preclude later ruling it back in again. That's just logic. That's common sense, Peter. We changed our position. We're a flexible government, and that's important.
As flexible as the Kama Sutra. So many positions. Oh, sorry. That was unworthy. But please humour me. What is the difference between a promise and ruling something out?
Look, a promise is something you intend to keep, if you possibly can. Circumstances change.
What about your promise to fully implement the Stage 3 tax cuts?
That wasn't a promise, Peter. That was an aspiration.
Again, what's the difference?
An aspiration is something you can later replace with an alternative incentive once you get into government and discover the mess the previous government has left you. As we did in that case. Everybody got a tax cut. Well, almost everybody. Potential Labor voters did, and that's the important thing.
Bribe, you mean?
Look, I reject that. It was an incentive. We rely on the common sense of Australian voters to see which side their bread is buttered, and it's very important.
But setting aside self-interest, what about the national interest? Does that count for anything with the Albanese government?
The interests of working Australians are the national interest, Peter. We will always stand up for them. We make no apology for that. Only yesterday I was saying to Jody, that the workers' interest and the national interest are one and the same.
What about your promise of a $275 reduction in power bills before the last election? What happened to that?
That wasn't a promise, Peter. That was an undertaking. We said it to make sure the previous government was dead and buried and cremated. Undertaking, get it? And it was our duty for the sake of the nation to get into government. It's that sense of duty to the nation that sets Labor apart. That's important.
Promises, aspirations, undertakings, ruling things in and out. That all sounds like a recipe for confusion.
On the contrary, Peter, they're part of a hierarchy of intentions, a good faith hierarchy, if you like, that is fundamental to orderly government. Even the coalition, with all its faults, understands this. See, One Nation doesn't, and that's why it's not fit for government. Not that the coalition are either, but that's for different reasons.
Angus Taylor has ruled out forming a coalition with One Nation. Do you give him any credit for that?
You can take that with a grain of salt, mate.
Like when you ruled out changes to negative gearing and capital gains tax?
Look, that was different. Look at the groundbreaking tax reform we've been able to implement. That only happened because we were able to rule it out before the election. That's the beauty of the hierarchy.
Well, what about death duties or capital gains tax on the family home? Will you promise at the next election not to introduce those?
I will make that commitment right now.
A commitment now? What's the difference between a commitment and a promise?
A commitment is much more solemn than a promise. It's at the very top of the hierarchy. It's something that voters can rely on every time. Well, mostly, but don't quote me on that, Peter.
Well, if they rely on that commitment, they're qualified to be committed. Prime Minister, we've run out of time. Thank you very much for appearing on Q&O.
Always a pleasure.